In 1968, the Pennsylvania Railroad and the New York Central Railroad merged, and what they created was a railroad that would become the biggest failure in the industry. I'm of course talking about Penn Central. Most people know that Penn Central was a huge failure, but most people don't know why it failed. But today, I'm going to show you the reasons why Penn Central never became the railroad giant it was supposed to be. Penn Central was the combination of two railroads that had been trying to outcompete one another since the beginning. The New York Central Railroad knew how to adapt to changes and problems in the railroad industry, while on the other hand you had the Pennsylvania Railroad, which was often slow to adapt to changes. They focused more on tradition. One good example of this is the Norfolk and Western Railroad, which the Pennsylvania Railroad had major control of, was still using steam locomotives into the 60s. They did this to keep the coal market in good condition, but this would ultimately fail. Another good example is the New York Central started cutting passenger trains that were not making money, while the Pennsylvania Railroad kept trying to push passenger trains to a market that didn't really exist anymore, which leads to our next topic. Was dealt a bad hand when it started. It faced challenges from other railroads and most importantly, cars and airplanes. Most railroads in the 60s and 70s were losing money hand over fist because of new travel freedoms that came with new highways and jets, but nobody was losing more than Penn Central. Penn Central at the time was the largest bankruptcy ever. While Penn Central wasn't the only railroad losing money on passenger trains, it was certainly hurting a lot more than most, both on long-distance trains and commuter trains. Penn Central's most well-known characteristic is its poor equipment and track conditions, but the reason for this is because of the aforementioned issues, which creates a cycle leading to a complete failure of the company. The 60s and 70s was definitely not a good time for Northeast railroads, or any railroad for that matter, but Penn Central was truly a poster child that showed the state of railroads around the country. The production that sums up the state of Penn Central's equipment and track is from a production that Penn Central used to ask for federal funding from the government.
Penn Central was created by a merger 6 years ago. For the last 4 years, it's been in bankruptcy. So far, it's been a downhill run. During a single recent month, Penn Central suffered 649 derailments, ranging from a single car or locomotive to pileups of 10, 15, or more. They damaged 252 locomotives and 1,637 freight cars. They caused cargo damage of more than $400,000. No railroad, let alone Penn Central, can afford such losses. Each derailment is symptomatic of the deterioration of our plant and equipment, which has been going on for years and is now rapidly getting worse.
With this information, you can see why and how Penn Central failed. But with Penn Central's failure, it would lead to the success story of the greatest railroad the Northeast has ever seen.